To stay overnight. Okay, let me get that off the screen. If you have to stay overnight, reserve a hotel with a complimentary breakfast. And I know that sounds mundane, but you don't want to be scrambling around in the morning to do that. And it's just more convenient. Know exactly what's expected of you, so there are no surprises. I like to tell people to know their strengths and weaknesses and plan your audition pieces towards your strengths. And if you have a choice of repertoire, pick contrasting styles and always start with your best piece. They will not listen to all of everything. It's really important to use your metronome and a tuner in your practice so that you can convey that when you're auditioning, actually. I always say audition before you audition. So that means do mock auditions, all those kind of things, play for friends, play for other flutists, so that you get the experience doing that. It's never going to be the exact same experience, but at least you will have done it. If a collaborator is required, I like to call them collaborators, not accompanists, because they're just as important. Rehearse with the pianist or one that is provided very carefully. If you have to use a pianist that is provided for you, pick repertoire that does not require a lot of ensemble practice. Like Martin Ballade is not a good one to pick for this because there's so much ensemble work that goes into that. But something like Lieberman Concerto or Taktakishvili, that's kind of standard pulse, would be much easier to put together. So you should think about that when you are picking your repertoire. If you can, try to find out what kind of hall or room you'll be playing in and what kind of acoustics it has. Wear nice clothes, no jeans or sweats, represent yourself well, and that also psychologically puts you in the right frame of mind. Get enough sleep, avoid caffeine, but if you're used to caffeine, go ahead and drink as much caffeine as you're used to. If you get dry mouth, you can gently bite the sides of your tongue and that'll make you salivate. And if you start sweating and your lip plate slides, you can put a postage stamp on that and that will help secure that. So those are two little tricks right there. I like to warm up with long tones, and I know that everybody does, but I do hear a lot of people in audition warm-up places playing really fast and furious, and that's probably not what you want to do. If you want to play through the technique, I would play through it slowly so that your fingers aren't getting tense because you're already tense. You just want really ease of fingers so that they can just do their job that they've been taught, if you're prepared. Let's see, be early to the audition. That's important. They will most likely let you start with a piece of your choice, then they'll pick after that. When tuning, don't turn your back to the audience. That's just kind of a normal thing for recitals too. If you're asked to sight read, remember that the rhythm is the most important and the notes are secondary. So really concentrate on that rhythm. And do not grimace at mistakes. How many times have we seen people go, you know, if it's out of tune or something like that and they play a wrong note? Take time between pieces. This is something that's really hard when your heart rate's up and you want to get things going fast, that you just immediately go to something else. And you feel like any time is really exaggerated. They kind of want that pause to evaluate in their mind what they just heard and be able to think about it. So I wouldn't rush into anything and give yourself time to just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Calming effects to slow your heartbeat down. Remember that you are auditioning for the school, but they're kind of auditioning for you as well. So make sure that you kind of check out, maybe talk to current students at the school, get the vibe of like, what do you guys do in studio class? What are the performance opportunities? Things like that. Now, lastly here, it's important to realize that some audition committees are straight-faced. They give no indication of what they think about your playing, even if you're the best flute player in the whole world. You can't let that throw your confidence, even though we let it throw our confidence. It's very normal. And some panels just seem like they want you there, and then you get the results and you aren't accepted. So that's another thing that can happen. So you cannot rely on anything that happens in that room about what comes at the end, when you get the acceptance or not the acceptance. Are there any questions about the live audition? All right, we're going to jump into the recorded virtual auditions. This goes for pre-screens too and actual auditions. As I said, if you can choose the live audition, choose the live audition. It's always best. But it's not a deal breaker if you need to do it, or if your finances are low, things like that, if you have to record. And for pre-screens, you have to record. So there are a few things that you can think about doing this. So some places rarely require only audio, but some places do require only audio. So make sure if it's video or audio. If you have the finances, hire a professional recording engineer, but you yourself can do a pretty good job these days. Buy or rent good equipment, gather lots of advice, and you use the highest quality available. The biggest thing these days is to invest in a good mic if you're doing it yourself. I have a couple of examples here. Some I really like. One is the Shure MV88 Plus. It's this little thing like this that sticks in to the lightning port on your iPhone. And it's a really, really great mic. So that's the Shure MV88 Plus. And we know the iPhone has good video quality, and that one's really good audio quality. Here's another one made by the Zoom Corporation. The audio on the Zoom machines is fantastic. Video is not so great, but if it's close enough, it's pretty good. The Zoom has also just come out with a new camera that is this Q8N 4K, and that has much, much better video than the other cameras. These are all in the $200 to $300 price range, I think. I think the Zoom camera is a little bit more than that. There are some decent microphones, though, that you can get for $50. So it's not a deal breaker if you can't afford that at all. Learn the software, how to edit it, those kind of things. When I say edit, most schools don't want you to edit it, but you can edit out turning on the recorder and turning off the recording machine. And that's what I'm talking about. So you can make a clean beginning, that sort of thing. If it's live virtual, like on Zoom, make sure the Wi-Fi is excellent and the mic and the internet connection convey the best sound. So that's what we were talking about a while ago. Prep. Make sure you know what is expected of you on the recording and what order. Submit well ahead of the deadline to give you peace of mind. Always put your best piece first if you have a chance or a choice. I know just from listening to recordings for competitions, things like that, that we get our first impression from that. And then when you're listening to 50 recordings, you can't listen to all of everything. There's just not enough time. So we tend to click around. So that's why it's important to put your best piece first. I would not put anything like Bach first because it's very controversial as far as interpretation, or Mozart. So put something else that's more of your own style. Get a page turner if you're using piano. Make sure the piano's in tune and you are in tune with the piano. Pitch problems will not help your audition at all. Okay, going on to the scene, what you want to look like. Do not look like what I have right now because this is way too busy behind me. Look at what Joey has, and that's much better. Well, we'll get to that because I've got some sample videos in a minute. Wear clothes that are comfortable, solid color, like my shirt, like Joey's shirt, so there aren't any distractions. I've seen videos where there's stuffed animals, all kinds of stuff behind them. And I understand that, but you know, if you can, just make a mundane background. So here's some sample videos. Have the light in front of you and not behind you because it gives a silhouette. Don't stand in front of a window. So we're going to stop this share and I'm going to share a sample video I made for you all of good and bad. Okay, let me get to this. Okay, so first sample, not so good, in front of a window. So what did you guys notice with that? Anyone? The first one wasn't so great, was it? Because there was such a silhouette. Is there anybody? Joey, is anybody talking in the chat? I don't have the chat.
Amy in the chat said the first video was seated.
Seated? Oh yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah, don't sit down. That's another thing. And it had terrible, I was up against this window right here and I thought, oh my gosh, because they can't see anything. The sound was different in those two and I can't remember what mics I used at all. But just make sure your recording levels are good too. So that was, you can keep that link. I'll keep it up on YouTube and you can say, okay, that was not good. If you're using piano, you show the piano. Record or perform in a recital hall or a room with good acoustics. I mean, that's kind of obvious. It's best full body shot, but at least from the knees up, and we want to see the flute as well. Film landscape mode rather than portrait. I love this trick and it usually works. Put do not disturb signs outside of the room, because then people will tend to be quiet. I've had some recordings ruined by people yelling down the hallways and it was like the best recording. And if you're recording at home, ask family members to be off the Wi-Fi because you want the strongest signal possible. All right. Okay. Physical and technical. This is interesting for both live and recorded. It's nerve-wracking to the jury panel to see somebody watching you like this while they're playing. So try not to do that. Josh, you can think of some people who do that. Um, but this tells the panel that you're more concerned about what they're thinking than what you're playing. So definitely don't do that. Put your music stand high enough, but low enough that we can see you. Just like this picture here, you can see me, but I can also see my music and look down with my eyes. You want to make sure though that you're not looking down with your chin. Let's see. They may ask this and they may not, but I think it's always a good idea to slate what you're doing. So state your name and what piece you're doing, any other information you want. Music theater people do this all the time, but it's called slating. Most good recording apps or equipment will have a mic gain selection, which is the level and sensitivity. What you want to turn it up as high as it'll go without bleeding into the red. You can listen back to a sample recording, and if it's bleeding, you have to turn down the gain just a little bit. But I would always play my highest and loudest note to see what the gain is, and then you adjust it towards that. Let's see. Again, take time between your pieces if the audition is in one take. They don't really care that you're taking some time. You feel like it's a long time, but it's not. And they can also, write down their thoughts, things like that. For a recording, it's a good idea to announce what take you are on to keep track of what version you like. You can edit it out later. So what I'll do if I'm playing Mozart, I'll say Mozart take 1. I'll play it. Okay, that one wasn't the best, so I'm going to do another go around. Mozart take 2. And I will write down, okay, take 2 was better because of this, and because of this, and because of this. So I always like to keep track of that, and I edit it out later. Practice the recording and performance. Even if it's just on your phone or iPad, you can hear yourself, and that's a really good teacher, is to listen to a recording of yourself. Yeah, review the recording and look for background, lighting, sound quality, video quality, background noise, things like that. For the virtual live audition, like it would be over Zoom, look at the live audition because all that applies. Practice the hardware and software. Joey and I got together 10 minutes before this to make sure that we had it going on. Let's see, and have good Wi-Fi. Virtual recorded audition. If posting a recording online, learn the available software and apps and or platforms to distribute. It's usually going to be YouTube unlisted. We all kind of know that. If editing is allowed, learn how to edit with your app. Usually you're not allowed to edit within the music, so I wouldn't even worry about that. And as I said, record several takes of every piece. The waiting game, that's always the hard part. You audition January, February, and you usually have to wait till the end of March or April. So that is not a fun time. Some schools have what they call rolling auditions, and you know right then or that next week. Some schools wait until the very end and let you know. So you might want to ask that when you're assessing the schools, that sort of thing. It's not a bad idea to write a thank you note to the audition panel. They will remember you that way. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to let you in the school, but it's always good form to do that. And what are the result? It may not have anything to do with your playing. It may be that they just don't have any. I know some people who could have gone to, let's say, Curtis, but they just didn't have any openings. They might not have any openings. So it's not always about your playing, that sort of thing. So usually you will end up where you're meant to be, is what I like to tell people. And that's kind of true. Let's see, going on. Any questions? I'm kind of racing through this.
No, we have like around 5 minutes.
Okay. Um, what the judges look for in an audition. Tone, obviously. That's probably a really smart thing to think about right at the beginning because they want to hear a good sound. Musicality and expression, intonation, technique, articulation, rhythmic accuracy, ensemble if you're using a collaborator. This isn't always on the form, but it's important. Your preparation and your attitude. Always be nice. That's in life. That's a good advice for life. And if you have to play from memory, remember there's 3 steps. There's visual memory of the music, the written music, oral memory of what it sounds like, and then digital memory of what it feels like. All those 3 things combine to play in by memory. Here's a whole list of things to manage performance anxiety. I'm sure you guys have some really good ideas too. You can read through this since we don't have much time. The one that's really funny, one of my music therapy colleagues told me about this. She said, you know, I've heard if you put a pebble in your shoe, the pain from that takes away the the fear of your performing, so you can divert your nervousness. I thought that was pretty funny. I like this last thing too. Remember the saying, look forward and not sideways. Remember, you're looking at your own path and not what everybody else is doing. It's all about your own journey. So if you can just remember that and remember to breathe, that's always the first thing that goes. Here's a list of some careers for musicians. There's so many things we don't think about. And while I was thinking about this, I thought, wow, there's a lot of things going on here that we can do. So there's that for you. Here's a sample resume. Just with some categories like I use that you can refer to. And here's a sample repertoire list with tone and scales, etudes, solo excerpts, things like that. You may not have all these categories, but that's okay. These are just samples for you to consider. I kind of raced through all that, but you have the document. So would anybody like to ask any questions or Joey, do you have anything you want to add?
I think everything was very detail oriented, and it's funny because when I was doing my grad audition, I did most of the things that you mentioned.
Oh, well, good.
Because I also did Zoom audition for my grad school, and I did live for my undergrad. So yeah, if
Oh, you
anyone,
did live for your undergrad. So you flew over here from China?
I went to high school in Canada, so it was.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. I was thinking, wow, that was a trip. How were the live virtual? Did the sound end up okay?
Yeah, so I actually also did test run a couple of times, and I got an external microphones. Did a little bit of setup when I was doing our virtual audition. One little thing that I found it was very helpful after hearing all the professors is that they actually, uh, we're looking at a laptop usually when we do virtual auditions, and it's likely that somebody's gonna be doing auditions like this, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Because you're talking to a laptop. And so that's a little etiquette that you can just raise up your computer instead of pushing you know, that board back a little bit. That
Oh,
way,
right. So instead of doing that,
yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
like
good
the
advice. Yeah. To
movement.
have it elevated to where you are so it's eye level.
Exactly.
Um, I think I had it on there, but I forgot to say anything about putting the mic above you.
Mhm.
looking down about 6 feet away above your head. It was in there somewhere, but I didn't mention it. So that's a good point with the camera for sure.
Michelle has a question in the chat. She
Okay.
asks, "Do you have any advice for writing a personal statement for grad applications?"
For grad applications?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's interesting because I'm helping my daughter right now because she's doing this. Personal statement, are they asking specifically about your career choices and what you want to do with your career? Or are they just saying, what's your personal statement?
I think so far the schools and the application portals that I've looked at so far are pretty open ended. They have some recommendations like mentioning your background and your goals and your credibility, like what you've done. But it's pretty open ended. So I just didn't know what direction to really
Yeah,
go
that's kind of hard,
towards.
isn't it? I might start. I always like to find out, like with Joey, I mean, she's not auditioning for me, but I was finding out her background and I thought it was a really cool trajectory she had. So, I mean, where did you grow up? What motivated you to become a musician? What are your dreams with being a musician? Who inspires you? I mean, it could be Lizzo playing the crystal flute. um, so that's what I personally like to hear. Josh, you just went through this. Did you have to write something like that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I did have to write a personal statement for my application. I kind of generally wrote about my interest in music from a young age, and also my development up into the point that I was applying for my master's. So I think they typically just look for your background and interest and why you're wanting to apply for the program.
I think it's just another way for us to get to know you because we have such little time in the actual audition room that it gives us another snapshot into your life. So I would say you have free range to do whatever you want. Other questions?
We have a question from Josh. Approximately how much does the Lightning iPhone mic cost?
The Lightning port, the MV88 Plus, I think is around $250, but it's a really good sound and convenient.
Any other questions? Oh, Josh asked, is there anything you look for in graduate auditions, specifically versus undergrads?
That's a good question. I'm always looking for soul in the playing. But for grad auditions, I just want to know that they've had, the basic fundamental training, that sort of thing, and have developed an array of styles from, early and definitely learning contemporary techniques because that's so important these days. So just diversity, but also passion and soul in the playing. I think that's probably the most succinct answer I could come up with.
Catherine, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing correctly, asked, would you mind elaborating on what soul means in regards to a performance?
Oh, sure. Just emotion and musicianship and musical line. And if you wanted to get to real specifics with that, it's like your use of vibrato, your use of dynamics, your use of tone color, just expressiveness in the music. Does that help answer your question, Catherine? I don't know. Yes, thank you. Okay. Other questions? Do we have a lot of teachers here?
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a student, well, she's not my student yet, but she's going to be, and she actually plays 2 instruments. I think flute will be her main instrument, but she does play bass trombone as well.
Oh,
So if she's auditioning, how does she highlight her other skills, like in when going through the process?
Well, that's an interesting question. Every school is going to be different with that. But what she could do is write on the application. Does she want to audition on both?
I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to be inheriting her as a student. I know her, but I haven't actually taught her.
Got it. I would definitely just, if there's no place on the application to do that, make a place and say, I do both of these. And if she's interested in both of these, to audition on both of them. That's interesting though, because I've had flute players who play tuba and marching band. And that's the one instrument that doesn't seem to affect their embouchure. So I'm guessing bass trombone will be the same thing.
Yeah, she tends to, I think, play more of the trombone in school because they need her. But she's a very good flute player too.
Right. That's the only thing I know, because that's such a rare thing that I think she would just have to make it her own and make it obvious in the application.
And add it to her personal statement, probably.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, me as a former pianist, this is something that I would definitely put as a secondary instrument on one of your top lines in personal statement. Yeah.
Definitely. I'd really want to know pianists. Other questions? I hear typing. Well, I hope this has been beneficial. You have the document. I didn't want to read it all to you, but you have most of my thoughts on this. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm just a click away. Zoom, I'm reading the chat and it's very nice. Close. Oh yeah, I do have that one too. Somebody's writing that they have the Zoom audio mic, and there's one that's just audio, and that's a really, really good mic. I have that one too that I use when I'm playing on Zoom. So that is a really great option too, which you could hook up to your computer that has good video. So you could record that way.
Thank you everybody for coming. If there's no more questions, I think it would be great if we can get a group photo. If everyone's...
Oh yeah,
that
would be great.
If you like to leave your camera on or off, yeah. Thank you everybody for coming. All right, let's get into positions.
Okay, everybody smile.
I'm gonna say 3, 2,
1.
Yay!
Yay!
Awesome.
Okay, well, I hope I've helped somehow. And I wish you all the best in your careers and your students' careers. And Joey, thank you so much for all of your help.
My pleasure. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, you too.